Buenas tardes a todos.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you once again for being here with us in this webinar cycle. Today, we will be talking about the importance of nurturing a DevOps culture, and we will have Florencia Polcaro to give us that presentation. She is responsible for our partner called Big Cheese, and well, we'll be enjoying this webinar time with Florencia about this topic, which is so important and so interesting to us all. I just wanted to tell you in advance that this webinar has simultaneous interpretation into English and Portuguese. So if you wish to choose either of these languages, you just need to click on the interpretation icon in the bottom part of your screen. You just select the language of your preference, and there you are. So Florencia will be giving us her presentation, and at the end, we will have, as usual, a Q&A session. So without further ado, Florencia, the floor is yours, and I'll see you towards the end of the webinar. Florencia, please go ahead. Okay, thank you so much, Aníbal, for your introduction. Can you hear me? Yes, loud and clear. Okay, fantastic. So let's get started. Thanks to you all for joining this time with me. And today we'll be talking about this, the importance of nurturing and fostering a DevOps culture. A lot of people, when they start hearing about DevOps and they picture what DevOps are, they tend to associate it with something that is very technical or complex, such as continuous integration, continuous delivery, and deployment, top-notch tools, the different pipelines to deploy. And this is a part of a DevOps culture, but it's a very small part of it. The largest part, and sometimes what we struggle with the most on a daily basis, is the culture. So we will be focusing on that in particular, of how we can really foster this DevOps culture. When we think about making deploys to production, just to give you a bit of humor, this is what our mothers think that we do, surrounded by screens and windows open, and what's going on and so on and so forth. But how we actually deploy to production feels something like this, which is Sebastian. He once had to deploy to production while walking in the street. So, of course, this is not always the idea, but it can be done in this way. And you can do so because for us today, making a deploy to production consists of just the click of a button. So jokes aside, in terms of the picture, of course, we are interested in understanding that, okay, this is the motivation. I wish that I could get to this and I didn't have to endure the torture that we usually endure when we want to deploy to production. So having that in our horizon, I should ask myself why DevOps culture should matter to me. So as we've all been doing lately, before we show the content, we run it on ChatGPT to see if anything can be improved. And I asked, what are the biggest challenges of implementing DevOps in a company? And without going into too much detail, the first two things, the top two things, were a cultural change, and the second one was resistance to change. These are not technical issues. They have nothing to do with pipelines or anything for that matter. This is just a cultural and process thing. It's about working with our teams on a daily basis. This is the top 10, actually, if you were wondering. So it starts with cultural change and resistance to change. And then only in the third place will you find the different tools and process integration, security, of course, training, all the technical aspects as well, monitoring, infrastructure. And let me just focus on this. The technical issues, the technical areas are the ones that are in gray. The other six, the ones with the font in white, are things that we can just work from the get-go without having to implement anything too complex. So let's take a look at it from a different angle. So what do we have beneath it when you're just deploying with one click? And as it says on the screen, how can you be confident about it? How can you make sure that it's going to work? So if we think of DevOps as an iceberg, the tip of it is what we all talk about, right? Automatic deployment, continuous integration. We have many pushes to production per week. But underneath the surface, there are so many things that are usually unheeded that we uh, don't really know that much about. But without it, we can't have the part on top. So on the left, you have things such as info as a code, monitoring and logging, system thinking, which is thinking of the system as a whole, how one thing can affect another, and then automated and manual testing. And on the right, things that are more about the team, or they have to do with soft skills and the culture, such as communication, autonomous teams, empathy, and of course, having that continuous improvement mindset. Now, let's assume that in your teams you have a distractor and you say, I don't want to start, working with DevOps now, but why do we think that this is becoming inevitable? What has happened to us over the last decade, perhaps a little longer, is that we have become really good at building things faster. Even tools like GeneXus allow us to create an MVP for a product in just a couple of weeks. And so, what are the implications of this? It means that you go to the client, to your customer, you build it really fast, and they say, wow, this is amazing. And this is setting higher expectations because now they wanted to keep on making that fast progress, which is setting higher demands in return for new development, new features, and improving on the things that you've already built. So as the demand gets higher, it means that you need to build faster again. And you need to find a way to survive this cycle, because one thing is when it comes to an MVP, so that you can show the product at its minimum and make it viable. And something quite different is that based on that speed, you will need to allow a whole system in production to survive with all the complexity added to it. So sometimes you need to change the way you work to, as I said, manage to survive to that improvement and building cycle that we've created. As a team and as an industry, we've all been there in a place where we find it really difficult to come to terms with the change. Every single time that we need to make big changes, well, we don't embrace those changes because we know that it can be destabilizing. So if we start to think, okay, why do we struggle so much with change? Why do we not want to be asked to change something or to improve something that you've already built? Well, if you take a look at it, we have the casus belli, the cause of war is that you had two teams. On the one hand, you had the development team, which is the one responsible for building new products and services, and we would assign them to building things and products. And on the other and you had the operations team or the infrastructure team, and you say, okay, you're going to be responsible for maintaining these existing products and services and providing them with stability. Just that means that you have two teams that have drastically opposite goals, because we know that the worst enemy of stability is change. Any kind of change that you need to implement, well, you need to consider how that's not gonna destabilize what you've already built. So this means that we are not well organized. You cannot work like this. So how do you start? How can you break that? Even in some companies, maybe that have a more traditional way of working, even there, those teams are working in different physical spaces. Maybe one is in one floor or another building or branch. So you've got a team that is not working physically together, which means that sometimes you will lack that empathy or that synergy. So that's why you need to, why we talk about that breaking the wall thing so that we can start working together. So probably the first step is, okay, you're not going to have two teams. You need to have one single team that is going to be called the DevOps team, which is development and operations. And it's going to be two teams with all their members, which are going to be responsible for building and maintaining new products and services. And what's going to happen here is that all these people will enter a constant learning, an ongoing learning journey and cycle. Towards the left side of your screen, you have all the words that are more related to the development team and what they know the most about. And around the ops, on the right side of your screen, you have everything that has to do more with the operations team. But what we precisely want to avoid is just like devolving that responsibility to, for example, from the development team to the operations team. Now you put it into production, the ball is in your court. We want to be done with that. So how can you indeed be done with it? Okay, by making that line, that boundary between what the development team knows and what the operations team knows becomes a bit more blurry. So those light purple terms that you have in the middle of the screen, they will be things that both teams know about. For example, dependency management. We want both teams to be able to understand an APM, which is an application performance management, so that someone from the development team can have a conversation with someone from the operations team and understand why a screen is working slow, that both know about scripting and continuous integration and pipelines. So knowing a bit more about what the other person is doing is definitely going to bring along a lot of improvements, and it's going to allow us to work with greater empathy. Also, there is one that is about security. So imagine that the development team says we need to put this in production, then the operations team is going to be like, okay, for us that is risky, we wouldn't want to put this in production. And the answer is we're not doing it because the operations team doesn't want it. No, you want to have a conversation with members from both teams so that you can understand why they believe that is risky and how you can mitigate that risk. So that is part of this learning journey of how to start, how to make that boundary a bit more blurry so that both teams know about what the other, each team knows what the other is doing. This is a quote by Martin Fowler. He's an activist, one of the creators of Scrum, that says that even with the best tools, DevOps is just another buzzword if you don't have the right culture. So once that you restructure your team, another thing that you need to work on is first, not having silos. And by silos, I mean independent teams that are sending mails back and forth. We need to work more collaboratively. We need to allow responsibility to be shared. This DevOps team will have a mission, which is to build and maintain, as we said, new products and services, and to provide them with stability. So it's going to be a shared responsibility. We want closer collaboration, we want empathy, and we want this system thinking approach. It's not about focusing on the services and just fixing what you need to fix and maybe breaking something along the way and you don't care about that. No, it's not the way it should work. It should be about thinking of the system as a whole. And you see that all these things are not technical. You can start talking about this with your teams today, and you don't need to have any technical knowledge. I also wanted to share with you an example of what could happen if you have all the necessary tools, but you don't have the right culture. So let's assume that we have an APM, in this case, New Relic installed, where you can say, where you can see everything, all the logs, and you can see the performance of the system. And the customer is reporting that there is a screen that is running slow, or is just not loading well, not responding, or at least not in the time expected. And so you need to take a look at your DevOps team to take a look at this, and you're going to try to identify the issue, and you say, okay, I found it. The issue is on the screen, and just to put it in GeneXus terms, we need to fix this work with because it's not performing well. So you even know the code line that you need to change or alter. But if you cannot make a push to production because you have a number of things that are pending and you don't have a clear line, or maybe something like some commits are wrong, then you have everything because you have the tool that allowed you to spot the mistake. You know how to fix it technically, but you cannot push it to production fast, not because you don't have the pipeline, but because your methodology, your processes to work with this are not appropriate. So again, the technical part of it, even though it may not look like this from the beginning, it's the easy part about this. Because if one of your teams needs some support, technically speaking, we can do that. We have provided support to different companies, and we help you set up your pipelines and all the technical side of DevOps, and we have the handoff, and the technical team will take true ownership. But we cannot tell a company how they need to change, culturally speaking. That cannot be outsourced. That is something that your teams and your company needs to do. So all this emphasizes that the challenge is rather cultural than technical. So this is a bit of what I wanted to share with you. We may have some questions you can ask us about the path that we've gone through, whether it's at Big Cheese or maybe helping other companies in terms of culture and processes and tools. Let's open the microphone, and you can manage this session, and let's talk about it. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Florencia. We already have someone with a hand raised. Eduardo, you can ask your question anytime. Okay, it seems that he regretted raising his hand. Any case, Florencia, that you would like to tell us about, or you've already told us about the of that situation of you know, the guy with the screen on the street. That was really fun. But any tip or anything else that you would like to tell our audience? Yeah, okay. So depending probably on the size of the organization or the company, normally when we provide support, advisory, or we help a company to set up a DevOps culture, we have a pilot project, right? It's not just something that you do willy-nilly, because it is a whole world, and you will not like it, and you will be regretting it very soon. So we try to do a pilot program. So I would advise you to choose a project that perhaps is about to start, or that is really valuable to the organization. And if that works, which it will drag, positively speaking, all the different systems to join it. And you should always keep in mind that the learning curve of how the performance is going to be as a team, it looks like a J, like letter J. At the beginning, it's going to go down. It's going to be very slow because you're going to be asking yourself a lot of questions, and where should you put this, and how should you go this? And it's going to feel like you're actually becoming slower. But once it starts going up, it is exponential in terms of what you win. And the time that you will have in your hands, and especially the peace of mind of knowing that um, that you have the right tools that will help you automate whatever can be automated. You will know that you're reducing the margin of human errors, that you can go back if you make a mistake, that everything is being monitored, and should something go wrong, you will have the necessary tools to identify it, as I was telling you with the APM and the login and all that. If it is an infrastructure issue, then you can absolutely scale it up. If it is in the cloud, of course, it's going to be much easier because cloud providers are no longer a place where they host systems, but um, they have very specialized services that make this much easier. We work with the AWS, the Amazon cloud, and it's a game changer in terms of the battery of things that you have available to be used. But circling back to the beginning of your question, I would advise you to start with a pilot program or a pilot project, and maybe a part of your team. You don't need to have the whole team working together in it. And from there, you will just learn and try to replicate best experiences with the other teams. Okay, great. Focusing on these tools that you mentioned, what would you say that are the three main tools at tech level, in your opinion, to implement a DevOps culture? Okay, I will give you an example thinking of GeneXus. First, of course, you need all the branching side, right? All the different stable environments. You need to define whether you need testing, QA, UAT, whatever you need, but you need to understand the rules for each environment and how the code needs to get to each environment, when to commit, when not to commit. That needs to be really solid. Then all the monitoring side of things, because once you're in production, you need to be able to understand quickly what's going on. If it's running slow, why? Is it the screen? Is it the query? Is it a third-party service that you're consuming on web services and is running too slow? So you need to have that visibility, and you cannot, it cannot be just trial and error. It needs to be a bit more efficient than that. And third, I would say definitely cloud services, Aníbal. Having all that automated in whatever cloud you have chosen will be very time saving. Great. Uh, Today, at the beginning of your talk, one of the things that you mentioned was the technical part and that other part that refers to soft skills. How do you work with soft skills with your teams, which is, as you said, so important, and not everyone manages to fully understand where to start? Okay, so at the beginning, uh, we had blood, sweat, and tears. You bash your head against the wall, as we've all been there, and it feels like torture. And you say, okay, it's impossible that every single time that I'm putting something in production, this will happen, or that it's taking me so much time to merge. So you always need to have that mindset of, okay, this cannot be happening like this, and you need to be able to automate things so that you don't go through these things so often, and the whole team needs to be aligned and working in the same way. Um, you cannot have one project in a company working this way, another project in the same company working another way. So I think that probably the main trigger is having that continuous improvement mindset that is going to make you actually want to try things out to see if you can improve. And of course, we keep on changing things all the time, and all the pipelines and processes. It's a never-ending process because perfection is impossible to reach. Because yeah, you're always going to have something that you want to improve on. And probably what makes you always invest in this is that, okay, the 20 minutes that you're saving because you've figured something out because of a DevOps culture, you should be investing in trying to improve something else. And that's how it works.
Perfecto. En la charla recién
Okay,
comentabas
great.
de
You
que
also
estás
said
trabajando
that
fuertemente
you
con
work
Azure
with
y con
Azure.
Microsoft. Hace
No,
unos,
sorry. AWS. Yeah, okay.
con AWS.
Amazon. Good.
Ok, perfecto. Este, hace poco
Not
vi una
long ago,
noticia de que estuvieron en Nueva
I read a
York,
piece of news
fueron
because you were in New
premiados.
York,
¿Nos
you
puedes contar un
received an
poquito de eso?
award. Can you tell us a bit about that? Yeah, that was a trip to New York. That was Fernando Martin, this year at Big Cheese. And it was an award that was given to the President of the Republic, Luis Lacalle Pou, because it was about his management of the pandemic. And because Amazon was invited to that event, he could take the main partner of each country. And so,
Ok,
on behalf of Uruguay, Big Cheese was invited because it's the biggest Amazon partner
bien.
in Uruguay. But the
Pero es decir
prize was
que, o
given,
sea,
that
no
award
que
was
es
given
una
to
premiación
the president. It was
merecido.
like an
Qué bueno.
acknowledgement.
Entonces ustedes son
Oh, okay. So
el
you're
partner que
the
tiene
main
todo lo
AWS
que es
partner in Uruguay.
Uruguay.
Yes, that's true. That's correct.
Bueno,
Okay,
muy
that's
bueno.
amazing. Congrats.
Felicitaciones. No sé si
I
hay
don't know if we
alguna
have any other
pregunta para
questions to
Florencia.
Florencia
Acá
by
estoy
our
por
audience. I don't want to just
este, quedarme con todo. Bueno,
okay,
si no hay más
good.
preguntas, dime.
Yeah, just to wrap up, to all those of you here, or the ones that watch the recording later, if you're at a stage in which you're adopting DevOps and you want to have a one-on-one question of where to start, or just to have a roadmap that is a bit more customized to your teams, you have my contact. You can get it through an email, and of course, you can drop a line.
Perfecto.
Okay, great.
Florencia,
Florencia,
muchísimas
thank
gracias
you so
a
much.
todos los
Thanks
participantes.
to you all
Muchas
for
gracias por
attending
colaborar
this
con
webinar.
nosotros.
And
Como les
as Florencia was
comentaba
saying, this webinar is
Florencia,
going to
este
be
webinar va a quedar
uh,
grabado en nuestro
uploaded
sitio
on our website at genexus.com/webinars.
genexus.com/webinars.
And well,
Así que
I'll
bueno,
be
nos
seeing you
estamos
next
viendo en
time
la
around.
próxima
Thank you,
ocasión.
Florencia, so
Gracias
much
por
for
estar
joining us.
presente. Nos vemos. Hasta luego. Chau,
Okay,
chau.
thank you. Bye bye.